Hi, this is Scott with Specter Gear, and for today's video, this is one that I've wanted to get to for quite a while now. I promised it several times in my range videos on the PC Carbine. I promised that I'd do a tabletop close-up on some of the accessories that I have on the gun, and in particular talk about how I have my PC Carbine set up. Now, this is the last week of December 2024, so we're at the end of the year. So this is the most current, recent, definitive copy of the PC Carbine that I currently have. Not that it's gone through all that many changes, to be honest with you, but it is a little bit different than the setup that I did on the video that I did about a year ago. So we'll be doing a little bit of an update on that as well. But what I want to do is I want to go from the buttstock all the way to the muzzle of the carbine and talk about kind of how I have the gun set up, why I made those choices, and in particular talk about some of the accessories that I have on this gun that are important to making the carbine run a little more effectively for you. So let me turn this around and let's start at the buttstock. Now, if you're familiar with the PC Carbine, you know that it comes with some additional spacer plates, and in fact I believe they come installed on the gun. One thing I'm going to tell you right away is if you have not experimented with short length of pull stocks, give it a try. And now this is something that I talk about a lot when I talk about shotguns. I talk a lot about reduced length of pull stocks and the importance of reduced length of pull stocks, especially towards controlling recoil, being able to get a proper shoulder pocket with a shotgun. But reduced length of pull stocks are a good thing with any shoulder mounted long gun. The reason for that is, and I'm going to try to simulate this here for you. So think, if you will, I'm holding each shoulder of a shooter. Now, the longer the length of pull is on the gun, the more you have to blade your body to properly get behind the gun, get your hands in the proper position, and be able to operate the firearm. If the length of pull is too long, you have to exaggerate even more. So you have to turn your body even more to get behind that gun and get oriented on the target that's directly ahead of you. Now, if it's a bench rest shooting kind of situation, basic square range thing, you're just out plinking, it's not that big a deal. But where it is going to become a big deal is particularly on heavier recoil guns, but not a problem with this because it's 9mm. Where it becomes critical here is in your ability to move with the gun shouldered. So if you've ever done any movement shooting, you know just how critical it is that you kind of have your upper body squared behind the gun so that you can move in whatever line you want to in a straight line. When your body has to be you have to turn your body or blade in an exaggerated fashion. What happens is it causes you to start crab walking. Movement is not as fluid as it could be. So short length of pull stock is going to allow you to square up behind the gun. It's going to increase your ability to move. It's going to make you more flexible in addressing targets to your left and to your right. So something to look at. And the reason why, myself being a guy who's 6'1.5" and 285 pounds, I don't have any spacer plates in mine. And this length of pull stock is frickin' perfect. Now, in regards to why this particular stock and why not the M4 chassis system so that you can get a real short length of pull, well, that's simple. I live in a state where that's just not done. It goes in contravention of our current assault weapons bans. So if you're in one of those states, this is an important gun for you. And knowing that they've designed this stock in such a way that it's going to be workable, and in fact, pretty darn good actually, because I've shot the one with the collapsible stock, and I like it okay, but I actually like this stock setup better because I tend to shoot guns like this more often. I shoot a lot of shotguns with conventional stocks, shoot Mini 14s, same thing. So moving on. So let's go to the first accessory on here, and of course it's a Specter Gear accessory, and it's an accessory that I actually designed. This is our buttstock magazine pouch for the Ruger PC Carbine with conventional stock. We also have these for the M4 stock as well. But this is a buttstock magazine pouch that holds two spare magazines on the gun. And what this means is if you have a situation where you need to just grab and go, you know, that 3 a.m. somebody kicking in your front door, and all you have time to do is grab the gun and go, you at least know that you've got ammunition in the gun to solve the problem, but you've also got spare ammunition on the gun to help you solve that problem even further. And this buttstock magazine pouch, now I currently have Glock 19 mags in here, but this will take Glock 17 mags as well. And it'll also accommodate the steel body, I believe it's the Ruger Security 9 series or Security Series magazines. Forgive me if I get the terminology wrong on that, but it'll hold those as well. But we're talking here conventional pistol magazines. It will not hold the the big 33 rounder extendo mag, and for obvious reasons, the damn magazine would actually extend almost up to the trigger guard. But if you happen to have a +2 module on here to extend the capacity on your magazine, it will accommodate those as well. So Glock 19, Glock 17, and the regular Security Series mags. But as I said, it gives you that extra ammunition on the gun. So depending on what you're talking about, if you're stuck with 10-round magazines, well, you got 10 in the gun, or 11, and another 20 on the buttstock, so you got 31 rounds to solve the problem with. But if you have standard capacity magazines, you're talking anywhere from 46 to 50-something rounds that you have in and on the gun. So that's pretty effective, actually, as a grab-and-go solution. Now, moving to the other side, attached to the buttstock magazine pouch, of course, we have a Specter Gear sling. Wouldn't be any different. And this happens to be a Specter Gear Raptor 2-point sling, which, as far as 2-point slings go, is one of my favorites. It's another one of my designs. But yeah, this is great. It's a neat little sling. It allows you to be able to use the front paddle to rapidly expand the sling to get a little bit more space in the sling if necessary, or to snug it up tight to your body in the event that you need to do that. So and we have a lot of other slings. We have 3-point slings available. We have different types of 2-point slings available for the PC Carbine. Real wide selection. So be sure to check out the website and have a look. Now, moving to the receiver portion, this is where we get into some of the interesting stuff. Now, let me first talk about an accessory that I don't have on here, and that is I do not have an extended magazine release, and for a couple of reasons. The magazine release on this is okay. It's adequate to task, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're having to accommodate a pistol magazine that has its little mag catch on the side of the body. So going to a paddle type at the rear isn't really practical because there's no hole on the back side of the magazine to be able to lock into. So you're kind of stuck with this conventional design that's not much different than the way a mag release would be on a pistol. So, or rather handgun. So as I said, you're kind of stuck with this. It gets the job done. And usually what I will do is as my hand is coming up with my reload, I'll punch the dead magazine out and then feed the new magazine right in. I've also tried, as my hand comes off of the fore end, hitting that and then going to the belt. I've actually found I'm slightly faster just waiting until I get up there with the fresh magazine before I punch this one out. And I just literally hit it with my index finger and then drive the new magazine in. Now, I have seen some extended magazine units that have this kind of superstructure that bolts onto the chassis of the gun. That's kind of a competition thing. It doesn't really appeal to me. It's a lot of extra parts that have the potential for a lot of extra breakage. And when it comes to accessories, I'm pretty strict. If it doesn't really bring something positive to the situation, it doesn't go on the gun, simple as. And there's a lot of little things that people put on their guns that don't necessarily need to be there and probably shouldn't. But if you've went with something like that, fine, do whatever you want. It really doesn't matter to me. I'm just showing what I've done and why I've done it. I've also seen some other mag releases that have a large built-up area on here. These I'm really going to caution you against because this already has some pretty good protection on it. There's a little built-up area here and here to the front and rear of the mag release that prevent inadvertent ejection of the magazine. The second you go above that and put any kind of built-up surface on there, it's going to be easy enough to bump up against something and actually knock the magazine out of the gun. And that's a potentiality that I don't want to introduce into the situation. So I'm okay with this. Now, of course, I've got the Glock magazine adapter in the magwell. It comes with the two. You've got the one for the security series magazine, and then you've got the one for the Glock mags. And as I showed earlier, pretty obvious, I've got that in there. Real simple switch there. I will throw it out one more time though. If anybody knows of anyone on the planet Earth that makes a magwell adapter that will accommodate a Smith & Wesson 5900 series magazine, so the mags that are used in the Model 59, the 459, the 659, the 5906, 5903, etc. The double column steel Smith & Wesson mags. If anyone knows of anyone making one of those, please let me know. I have a metric shitload of Smith & Wesson magazines that are full capacity that I would love to be able to use with this gun, and unfortunately have not yet found a magwell. I found them for the CZs, I found them for the Beretta 92s, but nothing for that. So if anyone knows that, please let me know. Okay, now moving up to the charging handle. Why is the charging handle on this side instead of the other side? Well, it comes from the factory with it mounted on the other side. When it comes to the charging handle on auto-loading rifles, the original positioning of that, I believe, and I don't know if this is for real or not, but this is my theory. It's a carryover from the fact that we had the bolt handle on, for instance, the 03 A3 Springfield rifle and the Enfield 1917 rifle, etc. We're on the right side of the gun. And because for a bolt action rifle, that's where it needs to be. If you were a prone right-handed shooter and it was on the other side, it would be difficult to get your hand off the fore end of the gun and come back and actually run the bolt on the gun. So they put it there. When it came time to put the operating handle on the M1 Garand, I'm guessing they carried that forward. I don't know why they just didn't put it on the other side. I've never, ever understood that. Aside from the fact that maybe they were concerned about it coming up and smacking someone in the face. That's possible because it did travel that far. This doesn't. Long story short, you will find that if you have the operating handle on the left side of the gun for a right-handed shooter application, it is so much easier to do things, particularly like clearing a malfunction. So I actually had a video where I was shooting one of these and I actually had, I think it was a failure to feed. And the ability to just tilt the gun in the direction that it needs to go, so the ejection port is facing down towards the ground, and being able to come back and hit there is so much easier than coming over the top of the gun and then tilting the whole thing back, or having to tilt it and then bring your firing hand up to actually clear the malfunction. So having it on this side is an excellent option. I am very happy that Ruger chose to give you that choice, that they didn't just leave it locked into this side and that's what you were stuck with. So my recommendation is put it on the left side for right-handed shooter applications. Give that a try. It's worked really, really well for me. The only other issue that I have with the charging handle is it doesn't rotate at all, so it's kind of locked into place. If you hit this enough, after a while, you can actually break it loose, and it'll start kind of coming undone on you. And there are some issues related to harmonics in this gun, actually rattling all the fasteners loose. I'll talk about that towards the end. I would like to see something that has sort of a bearing inside so that this actually turned kind of freely. So when you did come back and hit that, it would actually turn with your hand as you ran it to the rear, instead of actually working to actually loosen up the nut, or rather the bolt that actually fastens this in place. So there you go. Minor little nitpick, but it is what it is. Now, moving to the top of the gun, this is a new addition right here over the old setup that I had. Now, this is a 6-hour Romeo 5 dot sight, and I'm going to do a separate video on this. Dot sights are something that I am very late to adopt, and there's a reason for that. I spent many thousands of rounds and hundreds, if not thousands, of hours on the range learning how to become a very effective shooter with iron sights. And it took that much time to become really, really good with iron sights. The infuriating thing is with a close combat optic or dot sight, you can shorten the dwell time of that down to almost no freaking time at all. They are incredibly fast, especially under low light situations. There's 100 different reasons why dot sights is super effective, but I was one of those Luddites that was sort of stuck in my era of tactical relevance, and I have a video coming up where I'm going to talk about that a lot. So I became closed-minded to things like dot sights. Didn't mess with them. I was like, I'm good with iron sights. I don't need to hit a button to turn my gun on. Yeah, okay. This thing has a 40,000 hour battery life. You know how many hours 40,000 is? And it automatically shuts off. It has a shake awake technology, so it can be sitting in standby mode, and the second you pick it up and move it, it turns on and it's ready to go for another 39,999 hours. So you're fine. I don't have to turn anything on. Now, early dot sights, admittedly, you did. Battery life was a problem. Fragility was a problem. Weather protection was a problem. There were a lot of issues with early dot sights. And it's the reason why a lot of guys my age, we were sort of late to jump onto that. But I'll save that for the video that I'm going to do where I talk specifically about that. But when it comes to dot sights for the PC Carbine, I can't think of a better option for the PC Carbine than the Romeo 5. This thing is less than $200. I think I paid $159 for it. And when I was doing, and I'll kind of show you the history on this. When let me break this out real quick. When I was setting up my Super Carbine, now I'll be doing some detail on this coming up fairly soon as well. Decided to splash out and really get indulgent and get myself a genuine race gun. I mean, something that's got literally every advanced feature on it that you could possibly get on an AR-15 platform. When I got to the end and I said, okay, and the guy had already sold me a $400 light. I get to the end and I said, okay, it's time for a dot sight. What do I need? And he hands me this and I go, how much is it? And I'm expecting to hear, $500-600, and it's $159. I said, you got to be shitting me. $159 for that. He would be, as he put it, he'd be more than happy to take more of my money, but he wouldn't feel right about it. Because everybody in his circle was using these. I looked into it a little bit and I found out that these things are pretty well thought of, so I went with it. Went with it on this one, and it is now my preferred dot sight. You can spend more money on a dot sight. You can get more features, but for the kind of work I do with guns, this has literally everything I need in it. So the question that's going to come up when you go to mount one of these on your PC Carbine is these come with a riser. And some people say, well, do I run it with a riser or without? Well, you're going to find that on an AR-15 platform that has this straight line stock, the riser is definitely an important thing. Plus it co-witnesses with the sights. But when it comes to, hang on just a second, when it comes to something like the PC Carbine, because you have this drop at the stock, you're going to find that that riser is going to place that sight way, way, way too high. So you're going to have to remove the riser block and go with this particular setup. At least I had to. Now, it doesn't give you any provision for a backup iron sight, unfortunately. But in terms of optimal placement of the sight, it is only slightly higher than the actual ghost ring sight on the gun. So I find that when I get my normal cheek weld, I don't really have to change anything about the positioning of my face against the gun. Everything sort of lines up nice and perfect. So I can't recommend the Romeo 5 sight highly enough. It's just perfect for this. And you'll note where I have this put is I'm all the way lined up with the very last slot here. And that's where it felt kind of natural to me. I imagine you would want to experiment a little bit, but with these dot sights, you don't need to have it all the way back here. Hell, the thing will work all the way out at the end of the barrel if you need it to. But in terms of that occluded eye gun sight thing, it all works perfect right there. So that's the sighting system for it. So let's move forward to the fore end. Now the fore end, this was an early replacement on this. The version of this gun that we got came with the original synthetic short kind of half fore end setup. And it sucked, and it still sucks, and it will always suck. It was not a terrific idea. I can sort of see why Ruger went with it, but immediately everybody wanted some kind of a rail package or MOE setup for it, or M-LOK setup rather. And the first company to really answer the call and do so in an important way was Midwest Industries. Now, comparing this forend to the Ruger factory M-LOK, or yeah, M-LOK, I did say it right that time. I keep saying MOE for some reason. So comparing this to the original Ruger, they're almost identical. I would almost be, it wouldn't be hard to convince me that Midwest didn't OEM these to Ruger. But let me switch it to the other side so we can see the little label on here. So there's that. So on this, of course, we've got all kinds of M-LOK positionings here at every single quadrant of the compass. You can mount them 90 degree, you can mount them 45, you got it all the way along the bottom. You also have the hole on the side that will work with a QD swivel if you so desire, but I don't really care for my QD swivel right at that point. I like the termination point of my sling to be out more towards the end of the gun, but you do have one of those on each side. Now, in terms of workmanship and detail, this thing is excellent. It was worth every penny that we paid for it. Now, mounted to this in terms of M-LOK attachments, on the left side here I have a GG&G QD socket that's mounted to this side, and then on the other side I've got a little short section of rail, and I'm mounted to that is this humble little Streamlight LED TLR1. And for me, and in particular for this gun, this sort of works perfect. Now my general hold position is right here. I actually use this little radius right here as an index point for my little finger, and then from there I can just simply come up with my index finger and access the light or go to constant on if need be. It's not a terribly expensive setup. It's not a terribly expensive light, and it puts out an adequate amount of light for my purposes. You can do better. You can always do better. The only thing that limits you is the amount of money you're willing to spend. But for clearing a house, clearing a hallway, clearing a room, this light is orders of magnitude better than the stuff I was using back when I used to get paid to do that stuff. We were using the old 65 lumen Surefire lights, and we thought we were badasses. This thing's easily 3 times as bright as that, and works just fine. It's easy on, easy off. Now you could go full insane mode, and I'm not saying this isn't something I'm going to do at some point. This cloud defense light is unreal. How much light this thing is, unsettling how much light that it puts out. This would be kind of fun to mount up as a home defense situation. It sort of takes me back to, takes me back to one of my last training sessions that I attended. Oh, sorry, bumped the camera. When I was with the Sheriff's Department, we went down to Southern California and we trained with some Navy SEAL guys that worked for Surefire, and it was a low light tactics class and a team tactics class. We did a lot of work with lights and using lights to dominate a situation and control movement and be able to flank people. It was a pretty interesting class, and I learned that a high intensity light on a gun can be an important thing for you actually not ever having to even pull the trigger at all. It's pretty unsettling when you have somebody hunting you down and they're doing it with a high intensity light on their gun. So I could see the value of mounting something like a cloud defense light on here, but the thing is, $500 light on a gun that's, I mean, when we bought this is still just a bit of a $500. They've gotten a little bit more expensive over time. The latest pricing that I'm seeing on PC carbines is anywhere from $689 to $789, depending on how many options you put on there. To have one set up very similar to this minus the dot sight, it's about $789. That's still, in relative terms, compared to what everybody else is charging for everything else, it still makes this a relatively affordable gun. So this is probably all that you would actually need for for this gun at least. Now, moving all the way to the end at the muzzle, there's no muzzle device on this because this is made for the compliant state. So that's really all that's there. Internally, no additional modifications to the gun whatsoever. The only problem, let's talk in the year that I've really been intensively using this. What problems have I had? Malfunction-wise, fine. I had one malfunction that I could easily point to the magazine on because I was using range magazines that had been dropped in the dirt, and I had a failure to feed, and I'm guessing that was, and it was also on a magazine that was fully loaded, and it was one of these 10-round Glock Cal compliant mags, and that 10th round is rough getting that one off of there, especially even rougher when the magazine itself has got all kinds of mud and debris on it that I just kind of brushed off and loaded up. So I could see where it'd get a little sluggish. It was a pretty quick clearing on that, but other than that, it's been absolutely flawless. The only problem that I've had with this gun, and I've talked about it before, is in particular that bolt right there, the one that holds the fore end on. Now, underneath there, right now, I have a lock washer. I found a lock washer small enough to fit in there. Now, I am going to have to take this to the range and see if that finally solves the problem for me. It was tough getting it in there to begin with, and I've got a ton of Loctite in there, but this thing does like to rattle itself loose. It only takes a couple of magazines, and this thing will start, you'll hear it as you're firing it. It starts rattling on you. And I really think that is down to, it could be down to a couple of things. It could be a slight under specification on the thread, the threading that was done on it. It might be that, or it could just simply be down to harmonics. Sometimes these things take on a resonant harmonic that will actually cause the gun to vibrate enough that a bolt like that just starts to work itself out immediately, even with Loctite on it, by the way. So I'll keep you posted on that. Next time we take this out to the range, hopefully that holds in place, and if it does, I'll give the details on where to find the lock washer for it. But it's definitely something that should have been in there from the very beginning, to be honest with you. But that's kind of it. That's the setup on the PC Carbine. That's how I currently have it. I love this little gun. It is amazing and continues to amaze me. Now, yeah, it's still a 9mm, but it's a 9mm that I can hit anything I want at will within 50 yards. Doesn't matter. And I can do it fast, and I can move with it, and it handles fast, it handles quick. In terms of a home defense weapon, this thing is excellent. It's not something that I'd issue out to somebody again to go hunt down bad guys on the hillsides of Columbia or something, but it is definitely something that I can readily recommend as a home defense solution for a long gun, especially somebody on a little bit of a budget too, given that it is in comparison to, again, I'll bring this out, hate to flex one more time, but something like this is going to cost you mid 3,000s to get that. You can go less, of course you can go less, but like I said, you can do a pretty effective job with one of these pretty easily. So I'll bring it to a close. I've talked enough about this, so with that, I'll thank you for watching and or listening. This is Scott from Specter Gear, and again, if you're interested in any of this stuff, like our slings and buttstock magazine pouches that we have for the PC Carbine, please visit us at spectergear.com. With that, have a wonderful day and a Happy New Year.